Today's topic is the story of two top, young and strong senior military officers, Miao Hua and Weidong. But before talking about Miao Hua and Weidong, we should first draw an analogy and talk about another pair of senior Chinese officials who are very similar to them, Ling Jihua and Yuanchao. This comparison will help viewers better understand the underlying logic of internal CCP politics. On June 27th, the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress issued an announcement removing Navy Admiral Miao Hua from his position as a member of the Central Military Commission. At the same time, the Navy's Chief of Staff, Li Hanjun, was also stripped of his position as a deputy to the National People's Congress. It is said that Xi Jinping has already concluded that Miao Hua, Weidong, and others formed a political clique similar to Ling Jihua's, and he has ordered that the case be handled by reference to the Ling Jihua precedent in order to purge the remaining political influence. These people controlled the military's personnel power, formed factions behind Xi Jinping's back, practiced cronyism, and enraged the supreme leader. In the anti-corruption storm after the 18th Party Congress, Xi Jinping investigated and purged hundreds of CCP officials at the vice ministerial level and above. If you ask which pair of officials Xi Jinping hated the most, there is little doubt it was the combination of Ling Jihua and Li Yuanchao. These two firmly controlled the central personnel power, ignored Xi Jinping's attempts to promote his own trusted aides, and instead promoted their own people. They formed small circles such as the Youth League faction and the so-called Zishan Association. They also jointly orchestrated democratic evaluation processes unfavorable to Xi Jinping, leaving the supreme leader frustrated for several years. What few people expected was that after Xi consolidated power following the 20th Party Congress, a political clique extremely similar to theirs would appear again. Today, we will talk about these two pairs of political combinations that are so similar. Let us first analyze the career paths of Li Yuanchao and Ling Jihua to see how this combination formed, and why it was Ling Jihua, whose formal rank was lower, who was able to direct Li Yuanchao. Li Yuanchao and Ling Jihua came from completely different starting points. One was a princeling, the other was from an ordinary family. Li Yuanchao's father, Li Gancheng, once served as vice mayor of Shanghai. Li Gancheng and Zheng Qinghong's father had the same superior, Chen Pixian. Chen Pixian and Hu Yaobang were close comrades from the CCP's early years, both famous red youths, and Hu Yaobang trusted Chen Pixian deeply. Li Yuanchao attended university twice, first during the Cultural Revolution as a worker-peasant soldier student, and later by taking the national entrance examination and entering the mathematics department at Fudan University. But these university experiences also shaped him into an academic pedant. After graduating at the age of 32, Li Yuanchao stayed at the university as a Communist Youth League secretary. The following year, he was promoted to Deputy Secretary of the Shanghai Youth League Committee, soon after to Secretary of the Committee, and by the end of that same year to Secretary of the Communist Youth League Central Committee, becoming a subordinate of Hu Jintao. In just 1 year, Li Yuanchao jumped from deputy section level to a quasi-vice ministerial level. This kind of rapid rise was not a good thing. It left him lacking strong independent judgment, permanently trapped in an overly intellectual way of thinking and repeatedly making mistakes in major decisions. Ling Jihua's father, by contrast, was only a deputy bureau-level official, and he retired as early as 1962. Under his father's deliberate guidance, Ling Jihua became a political animal from a young age. He was clever, eager to learn, and articulate. He loved reading People's Daily and Red Flag magazine. In 1979, Ling Jihua was selected from the grassroots to work in the propaganda department of the Youth League Central Committee, and he served as the secretary to Gao Zhanshang, a Central Committee secretary. He even followed Gao to work in Hebei for a period. When Gao asked him whether he wanted to stay there, Ling chose to refuse, giving up a possible local posting in order to continue being the secretary of a rising star. He returned to the Youth League Central Committee as an ordinary cadre. After that, Ling Jihua studied at the Central Youth League School for 2 years, and after graduation he became a deputy division chief. It was at that stage that he met Li Yuanchao, who was then a secretary of the Youth League Secretariat. Ling often gave Li Yuanchao advice that made Li feel enlightened. Li was astonished by Ling's abilities and strongly recommended that Ling become director of the Secretariat Office and deputy director of the Youth League Central Office. Their political bond began there. In 1989, during the June 4th incident, Li Yuanchao sympathized with the students who demanded democracy. He was labeled politically unreliable and was transferred to marginal departments, staying sidelined until 2000. By that time, the older generation patrons behind him had basically all retired. Ling Jihua, on the other hand, advanced step by step. In 1995, he was transferred from his post as head of Youth League propaganda to the research office of the Central Party Office, where he led Group 3 and directly served Hu Jintao, who was then the designated successor. Ling Jihua was basically born to do this kind of job. His meticulousness, dedication, writing ability, coordination skills, and political sensitivity won Hu Jintao's deep trust. In 1999, Hu recommended Ling Jihua to serve as deputy director of the Central Party office, directly bypassing Chen Shiju, who had long followed Hu. From that point on, Ling Jihua formally became Hu Jintao's political secretary. Li Yuanchao's fortune also began to turn. At that time, Zhang Qinghong had become head of the organization department. Because of family ties, Zhang arranged for Li Yuanchao to serve as deputy secretary of the Jiangsu Provincial Party Committee and concurrently as party secretary of Nanjing, positioning him as someone accepted by multiple factions. After the 16th Party Congress, Ling Jihua became executive deputy director of the Central Party office, while Li Yuanchao became party secretary of Jiangsu. Under Ling Jihua's coordination, Hu Jintao made multiple inspection visits to Jiangsu to endorse Li Yuanchao. Li Yuanchao, in turn, frequently asked Ling Jihua about the political winds in Beijing. And when he handled cases such as the Taiban steel incident and the Taihu algae crisis, he did so in a way that fully satisfied Hu Jintao. Their relationship grew closer, and the power dynamics also began to reverse. Even though Li Yuanchao's formal rank was higher than Ling Jihua's, the special nature of the Central Party office meant Ling Jihua was no longer Li's subordinate. Instead, he had become Li's strategist. Many of Li Yuanchao's Jiangsu policies were guided by Ling Jihua. After the 17th Party Congress, Ling Jihua became director of the Central Party office, while Li Yuanchao entered the Politburo and served as head of the organization department. Both were members of the Secretariat, and the work of the Secretariat was led by Xi Jinping, who was then the designated successor. According to Secretariat rules, personnel matters should first be reported to Xi Jinping, discussed collectively, and then submitted upward to the Politburo Standing Committee and the General Secretary. But Li Yuanchao basically deferred to Ling Jihua on everything, believing that Ling's views represented Hu Jintao's will. Together, they promoted large numbers of youth league cadres, as well as officials connected to Shanxi and Jiangsu, expanding their factional power. They ignored Xi Jinping's attempts to promote Chen Xi and He Lifeng. In order to resolve Chen Xi's ministerial rank, Xi first transferred Chen Xi to the Ministry of Education, preparing him to become minister. But the position was taken by Yuan Guiren, backed by Wen Jiabao. Xi then transferred Chen Xi to Liaoning, preparing him to become governor, but the governorship was held onto by Chen Zhenggao. In the end, Chen Xi was placed in the relatively marginal China Association for Science and Technology just to resolve his ministerial rank. The same kind of situation happened to He Lifeng. Xi and Zhang Gaoli hoped that He Lifeng could become mayor of Tianjin so that his future path would be broader, but this was blocked. He Lifeng could only be made chairman of the Tianjin CPPCC in order to resolve his ministerial rank. As for other people in Xi Jinping's circle, some had to rely on their own efforts, while others retired before Xi rose to the top, such as Xi's former secretary in Fujian, Huang Xingfa. Ling Jihua also orchestrated the extradition of Lai Changxing. After Lai Changxing fled to Canada, there were two opposing forces inside China, one that wanted Lai returned to China and one that wanted to keep him in Canada, causing the Canadian side to be confused and uncertain. This time, Ling Jihua's side went all in. They agreed to share the confiscated assets with Canada, and they also guaranteed Lai Changxing's life and human rights, forcing Lai to return to China with the secrets of the Yuanhua case. Ling believed that after Lai returned, it could at least restrain Jia Qinglin, and it might even implicate Xi Jinping. In the end, this plan failed. Perhaps because Xi had nothing to do with the Yuanhua case, or perhaps because He Guoqiang intervened. But regardless, this incident left Xi with an extremely negative impression, and it later became an important factor in Ling Jihua's downfall. In May 2012, ahead of the 18th Party Congress, Ling Jihua planned a so-called democratic survey, taking more than 300 provincial and ministerial-level cadres as the sample, trying to influence the personnel outcomes of the Party Congress. In this survey, Ling ranked third, and other youth league cadres also scored very high. But the results were disputed, which led to a second survey in July. Within the CCP system, the most crucial departments are the Central Party Office, the Organization Department, and the Discipline Inspection Commission. Ling Jihua controlled the Central Party Office, Li Yuanchao controlled the Organization Department, and the Executive Deputy Secretary of the CCDI, He Yong, was aligned with Ling Jihua. The Minister of Supervision, Ma Wen, who was aligned with Wen Jiabao, was also close to Ling Jihua. Meanwhile, the Deputy Secretary of the CCDI, Huang Shuxian, was a long-time Youth League veteran. As a result, Ling and Li had enormous influence within the Discipline Inspection Commission. In this way, the Ling-Li combination basically controlled the daily operations of the Secretariat. Although Hu Jintao himself was not power-hungry, authoritarian power does not disappear, it transfers. As Hu Jintao's chief secretary, Ling Jihua shared and exercised part of the general secretary's power. He became the de facto operator of the Youth League faction and Xi Jinping's biggest political rival. Although Ling Jihua maintained personal ties with Xi Jinping, he even took charge of renovating Xi's residence. The political rivalry between them was impossible to reconcile. In 2014, after Xi consolidated his power, he brought Ling down and destroyed Ling's entire family. Li Yuanchao narrowly escaped because he was relatively clean and because of intervention by elder elites, but after that he was sidelined. In reality, it was Ling Jihua, not Li Yuanchao, who was the real decision-maker. That was because Ling, as Hu Jintao's chief secretary, shared the authority of the general secretary, and also because Ling had stronger strategic ability. Li Yuanchao's rise depended more on family background, which made him indecisive by nature. Now we turn to Miao Hua and He Weidong. Miao Hua, as the son-in-law of a senior official, benefited from 4 patrons. The first patron was his father-in-law, Ye Hanlin. Ye Hanlin was a veteran cadre from the new 4th Army. He served as political commissar of the 31st Army and also as deputy director of the political department of the Fuzhou military region. The 31st Army was stationed in Xiamen for a long time. In June 1985, Xi Jinping arrived in Xiamen as a vice mayor in charge of civil-military relations. On Army Day that year, Xi led city officials to visit the 31st Army and met Ye Hanlin and other leaders. Xi personally ensured that the army's needs were implemented, from building military roads to arranging soybean supplies and household registrations. Over the past more than 30 years, this relationship has deeply influenced the current military landscape. Miao Hua began his career in the 92nd Division of the 31st Army. With his father-in-law's support, he became regimental political commissar at 32 and division political commissar at 40. His second patron was Zhao Keshi, who was transferred from the Nanjing military region. As Zhao Keshi rose, Miao Hua became political commissar of the 12th Army at the age of 50. His third patron was Chen Bingde. Chen had once been deputy army commander and chief of staff, and later became chief of the general staff. With Chen's support, Miao Hua was promoted to director of the political department of the Lanzhou military region and later became deputy political commissar and discipline chief. In July 2014, after Xi consolidated his power, Miao Hua became political commissar of the Lanzhou military region. Later that same year, because the Navy was in turmoil, Miao Hua was urgently transferred to serve as political commissar of the Navy, becoming the first outsider in decades to hold that position. In 3 years, he reshaped the Navy's senior leadership and turned the Navy into a major talent pipeline, and he won Xi Jinping's trust. In 2017, Miao Hua became director of the General Political Department, effectively the military's head of organization and personnel. His whole career was in political work, so he was skilled at political maneuvering, but he lacked combat credentials, and this ultimately limited how high he could rise. He Weidong's rise was slower. Only after he entered Zhao Keshi's network did his career accelerate. With Zhao's sponsorship, He Weidong rose through operational commands. In 2016, he became deputy commander of the Western Theater Command and commander of the army. After Miao Hua moved higher, He Weidong became commander of the Eastern Theater Command and later entered the Joint Operations Command Center. Before the 20th Party Congress, Miao Hua, unable to become vice chairman himself, threw his full support behind He Weidong. At the Party Congress, He Weidong was elected vice chairman of the Central Military Commission despite not even being a member of the Central Committee, creating a historic anomaly. This was made possible by Xi Jinping's favor and by Miao Hua's maneuvering. He Weidong was not familiar with political work and relied heavily on Miao Hua, so he basically deferred to Miao. Together, they used Xi Jinping's trust in 31st Army officers to build a huge faction across the military. By controlling the political department, the discipline system, and the general office of the Central Military Commission, they shaped Xi Jinping's information flow and personnel decisions. This concentration of power exceeded that of previous vice chairmen. They became the military's biggest power block. Promotions depended on whether you were loyal to them, rather than whether you aligned with Xi Jinping's strategic vision. This undermined Xi Jinping's control, and it also undermined the military's effectiveness. After Zhang Yuqie and Xu Qiliang complained, Xi took decisive action. People connected to the 31st Army and the Nanjing military region began to fall, and investigations into Miao Hua and He Weidong began. Clearly, the Ling Jihua Yuanchao combination and the Miao Hua He Weidong combination share extremely strong similarities. As core personnel at the leader's side, they each controlled the office system, the organization, personnel system, and the discipline system within their respective domains. They shared the leader's authority, built factions, and put their own interests above the leader's interests, thereby provoking Xi Jinping's hostility and retaliation. In these two combinations, the person who played the leading role was not the higher-ranking Li Yuanchao or He Weidong, but rather the more strategic Ling Jihua and Miao Hua. Although one operated in the party's general office system and the other in the military's organization system, in long-term work they both understood the CCP's operating system better, were more familiar with power struggles, and were better at factional maneuvering. That is why they were able to control those who were formerly higher ranking and ultimately became the real brains behind the scenes. This is CCP politics, where success makes you a wise and heroic great leader, praised by hundreds of millions, and failure makes you a sinister conspirator within the party, bringing ruin to your family. Alright, that's it for today. Thank you everyone. Please follow, like and share. Thank you.